The next step on the footstool, after we lay out our paper stretcher, which we just learned how to do, we have to lay out a stretcher and actually make one that is functional. We have to make one out of wood. So the first thing you want to do is to pick a species of wood that matches the actual footstool. So the footstool that I am making is made out of sassafras, so I grabbed a piece of scrap wood out of the scrap wood shelf that is at least 2.5 inches wide, that's this way here, and at least as long as my outside of dado to outside of dado, just like we did for our paper copy. And if you can remember, in the paper copy, our measurement was 10 3/4. So the board that you need has to be at least 12 inches long, not 10 3/4. And the reason that it has to be 12 is it has to go through the planer, because we have to plane this board to the correct thickness to fit inside of our mortise that we cut on the bandsaw previously. So what we're going to do is we're going to plane this down. We're going to plane this piece of wood down until it fits inside of the mortise. So the first thing we do to do that, we take our board up on end like so. We grab our tape measure and we figure out what our current thickness is. So the current thickness of my board is 1 1/16. So what I do is I come over here and set my planer to 1 1/16 using this gauge. So I come down until it hits 1 1/16. And there's 1 inch and there's 1 1/16. Now what I'm going to do, I have to turn the dust collector on because this makes a lot of dust. So we come over to the start button over here, turn on your dust collector, turn on your planer. We're going to do it again, but we have to crank our wheel one time. So it's at 6 o'clock. We turn it clockwise. Now it's going to be 1 inch. Send it back through. I'll set you guys up over here so you can see. Turn it one time. Send it back through. This will make it 15/16. Turn it again. 7/8. Turn it again. We're in 13/16. Now I want to bring my footstool over, and I want to make sure that it doesn't fit yet. So I have a 3/4 inch gap, and I'm at 13/16. So I'm not going to do a full turn. I'm going to do a half a turn. Check for fit. Just about there, and you'll need a little bit more. So I can do another half a turn, which is only a 32nd of an inch. And that fits perfectly. So that's what you're looking for, so that it doesn't fall out. You also shouldn't beat this in there. If you beat this in there, it's going to split your leg in half. Now, so that you can hear, we're going to turn the dust collector back off. So then our next step is to lay out the same pattern that we laid out on paper out on the wooden part that we just planed. So what we're going to do first is we know that that yellow one, the one that we made out of paper, was 10 3/4 inches long. So what we need to do now is make this piece of wood 10 3/4 inches. So we'll take this, we'll put it up on top of there, we'll grab our tape measure. We're going to mark 10 3/4 from the end. So let's grab our tape measure. We're going to grab 10 3/4. There we go. We'll put a mark at 10 3/4. Just double check it, make sure that's right. Okay, now we're going to take it over to the radial arm saw and we'll cut that to length, and then we can lay out the rest of our stretcher. So let's bring it over here to the radial arm saw. Set it up, and we're going to cut this to 10 3/4. That goes in the scrap barrel, and we go to the front of the room and lay out our stretcher. Now to lay out your stretcher, if you can remember, what we need to do is take our actual footstool that we were working on, and we are going to lay out our parts. So we need to figure out the length overall and go from there. Let's pause you there. Now it's time to lay out our stretcher. So we get our measurement from outside of data to outside of data, which we already did. And we know that it was 10 3/4. We cut this on the radial arm saw. The next thing we're going to do is insert your left leg in. So I'm going to put an L on here for left. And I'm going to put an R or an L inside of here so that I know my left leg stays in my left leg. And I'm going to put a right on this one and an R inside of this so that I know that those two are going to stay together. Then I'm going to measure the depth of my mortise with my leg inserted into my footstool. So I'm going to go down like this here. And this one here is just above 13/16 of an inch. So I'm going to measure down on this board just above 13/16 of an inch and put a mark. Then I'm going to do the same thing with my right side. I'm going to measure the depth of my data. This one here is just under 7/8 of an inch. So they're just a wee little bit off of each other, not much. So I'm going to go just under 7/8 of an inch and I'll put my mark. There we go. Now I'm going to take a square and I'm going to project that line over the thickness of my leg. Well, the thickness of my leg, we learned when we were back at the planer, is 3/4 of an inch. If your leg is different and you planed it a little bit under or a little bit over 3/4 of an inch, you need to go over whatever the thickness of your leg is. So if you see I came over 3/4 that way and 3/4 this way, and I just set my combination square on a whole inch and go over 3/4. Now I'm going to measure down 1 inch and over 1 inch, just like we did on the paper copy. On our yellow paper copy, we came down 1 inch and over 1 inch. So on this here, I'm going to measure down 1 inch. Same thing over here, down 1 inch. And I'll use my square. There we go. And I'll come like this here, and I'll connect that dot to that dot. There's my line there. And here's my line over here. And then I'm going to come over 1 inch. So the way I know how far I'm going over, I already came over 1 inch. I'm going to go over 1 inch this way. Well, this was 3/4, so all I'm going to do is go over 1 3/4 because I have to account for that 3/4 that I already went over. So I'm going to come over 1 inch. There we go. And same thing over here. Put my square on and come over 1 inch past the 3/4 mark, which would make it 1 3/4. There we go. So now we're over 1 inch, and now I just want to come down 1 inch from the center. Well, we said before on the paper copy that it was 10 3/4 and that half of 10 3/4 was 5 3/8, because to get half of a fraction, we double the bottom number. Then we measure down 1 inch so that we can touch these 3 points. So you're going to touch this point to the middle point to the end point. Now you're going to bend your roller like this, and like I said before, I don't have an additional person, so I'm going to use a clamp to bend this roller. Okay, and then once I get that roller bent to the right angle, I'll trace that line. Almost there. There it is. Oh, pulling a little bit too much. Got to relax it. There it is. And now we're going to trace that line to touch all 3 points. So we're going to touch this point, Now if you push real hard, it's going to bend the roller, so just nice and easy. So then you want to touch all 3 points, and then it's time to cut that out on the bandsaw. So we'll take you over to the bandsaw. Take you over here, get you lined up if you can. Let me grab the ladder to set you guys up a little bit better so you can see. There we go. Okay. Set you up. And we'll cut this out on the bandsaw. Remember, set the height of your depth gauge, and we'll go in. We're going to cut in all the straights first. Stay off of the line. Keep your hands out away from the blade. Put a couple relief cuts in your curve. To do that, you're just going to go like this. And then you'll start to cut your curve. Once you get halfway, come around the other way. Remember, you want to leave the line too. Don't cut the line, we leave the line and then sand to it. Now that the stretcher's cut out, we'll come over to the sander and we'll sand to the line. And then we'll check for fit. And if it doesn't fit on the flats, on the parts that are going to go into the mortises, then you want to take a file and clean that up. So we're going to turn this on. And just sand to the line. Then you take it over to your footstool and you check for proper fit. So you'll put this here. Get you squared away so you can see. This should fit inside of here. Get the other side. That goes in there like so. This goes in here like so. I need to do a little bit of filing. So it looks like on this one leg, I'll have to file a little bit outside of this. And then if it doesn't fit, we can also file these edges a little bit, just to give them a little bit so that they fit inside better. And you're just going to touch it with a file. Don't go crazy with it. Put it in a vise, file it until it properly fits. And the next step will be dry clamping this and then assembly. So they're going to take just a little bit of filing on here, a little bit of filing on this mortise just to open it up a wee little bit more, and we'll be good to go. And that's how you lay out your stretcher and get it to fit together.